there, ref. Actually got the ball. Yes, good afternoon, Tottenham fans. Welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boy Dave. Jack is currently down in bed with a bit of flu, so he said, he'll get out of bed for the watch long. But we have Martin, we also have Steve, and we also have Soren with us. Plenty to talk about off the back of that horrible 0-0 away at Brentford. And of course, today we welcome high-flying Black Cats down to N17 Sunderland to take them on. Not going to be an easy game. They did pick up a good point against Man City, despite a lot of their players heading to AFCON and stuff like that. Again, another example of a manager maybe getting the best and utilising his squad better than maybe what our guy is. Do apologise about no watch along on New Year's Day. Of course, I had family stuff going on, big family dinner and that, and Jack also the same. But we will be back now for the whole month of January. Of course, transfer window. Brennan Johnson is gone. Thank God, a player that needs to be moved out. Surprised we got 35 million for him, but I'll take it, and hopefully we can reinvest it quicker rather than later in this transfer window, because we do need reinforcements in now. Martin, how are you, sir?
Yeah, all good, mate. Bit cold and rainy here in Spain, but it's only a short period. Apart from that, everything's all right.
Never heard of rain in Spain, lad.
Yes, it's once or twice it turns up the year, but we've got some today. And tomorrow, apparently.
Lovely, lovely. Stevie, how are you, my man?
I'm absolutely freezing my balls off here in the Great Lakes region of the United States. I think currently right now it might be 5 degrees outside Fahrenheit. So you guys, I'm sure you guys can do the Celsius conversion. That's like I'm wearing like 4 different layers right now, just kind of like waiting for this match to kick off. So the blood thins out a little bit. God damn, it's cold.
Don't worry, you'll certainly warm up with anger in about 10 minutes into the game. You'll be fucking sitting there topless. Soren, how are you keeping, sir? Good to have you back, my man. I speak for everybody there. How have you been?
Not too bad. Just disappointed. It's another game day and we've got to sit and watch some crap football again. Yeah, seems so long since we were excited about playing in a cup final and lifting the cup, and everybody seems to have a little bit of joy. And yeah, we seem to have got what some people wanted. New regime, new manager, crap football.
Yeah.
Grass is always greener.
And the thing is, we can all sit here and scream for the guy to go out, but, you look at Chelsea, sack Maresca, they're looking at bringing in Liam Rosner. Like, what's out there at the minute to sort of replace the guy, which showed me made a massive boo-boo, in the summer. But also, I don't think the Lewis family, have the balls to sack Thomas Frank. If Daniel Levy was here, he would have been sacked probably in October. And I think the Lewis family are a little bit wet behind the ears. But look, we've got plenty to discuss today, and hopefully we see a much better performance. We are at home. Our home form isn't great. So let's see if we can turn that around. Let's welcome a few people in at home, and then let's crack on, because we've got lots to talk about. We have Brett Lockhead. Thank God you guys are back, but Brentford was dross. Hope for better tonight. I think we all are, my man. Good to see you, Brett. Adrian says, good morning, Dave, Jack, the panel. Looking forward to going to the game and getting 3 points. I think you're on your own there, Adrian. I don't think anyone's looking forward to the game today. Hopefully 3 points, lad. MK says, looking forward to the watch along. Please, Spurs turn up today. Another 3 essential points needed with a strong performance. The team selection will tell us a lot. Come on, you Spurs, for sure it will. Hopefully, no Archie Gray in the number 10 again. We've got Callum. Good to see you, my man. Hopefully, you're keeping well. We've also got Patrick. Happy New Year to you, lads. Let's hope 2026 gets off to a good start against an impressive Sunderland team. Happy New Year to you and everybody else out there as well. Yeah, look, hopefully 2026 starts off much better, than the way 2025 ended. Dante says, good morning, all. Happy Spurs New Year to all. Hope all is good. Hope it's a good one for you all. Saying to you, Al Dante, good to see you in the building. Hopefully we see Kudus back soon as well. That'd be nice. We could really do with him. Aussie Frank Lover says, big up, lads. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. We've also got Al Dante says, Sunderland could draw against City. We beat them every season. We do, but this is a different Sunderland team. Tom Lowry, making no secret, he wants Frank out, along with you, Callie, as well. They all want Frank out. We've also got Iceman, big up Dave, Soren, Steve, and Martin. Also, everyone in the chat, Happy New Year. Hope you all had a great time. Same to you and the family, my man. Kerry King, Happy New Year to you as well. Hopefully you're keeping well. Marcelo says, I got to say, I told Spurs fans that replacing trophy winning manager with a Brentford manager is not an upgrade. Absolutely, and I was there with you in the summer. I tried to give all the warning signs of what was a wrong decision. But look, He's still wise in the job. He still has time to turn it around, and hopefully he does. Because no one wants to be here, regardless of what your thought was on the manager at the start of the season. No one wants to be here right now where we are. Tom Larry also says, awesome hoodie. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. We've got Wayne Bonner. Good morning to you. He says, hope you all are well and a great New Year's. Not been looking forward to this game all season. Sunderland could give us a whooping if they do. He has to go today. He just simply has to go today. You know, bring fucking Mason back in as interim or something like that. You know, he can't do these. Kieran says, hello, Dave and Jack and everyone. Happy New Year. Frank is a dead man walking as far as I'm concerned. And it's only a matter of time before he's sacked. To be honest with you, I think as soon as someone better becomes available, I think you know, he'll end up losing his job. But it's just like I said, what's out there. Bingai, good to see you. Jerome, morning, good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. Richard is in the house as well. Good to see you. And then we also have Taylor Knightsbridge as well. Good to see you, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. Look, let's get into it. I mean, Martin, we'll kick it off with you, sir. We come into today's game off the back of an uninspiring 0-0 draw against Brentford on New Year's Day, where Spurs managed just 2 shots on target, and Frank and the players were booed off at full time. What were your takeaways from that performance, and do you expect a reaction today, both in terms of intensity and maybe a lot more attacking intent?
My reaction to that is it can't be any worse than that. Whatever they do, it just cannot. That is the lowest bar of lowest bars for me. I just don't know what went wrong. It has to be a mindset and setup from Frank, because I'm not having it that these players are just doing that off their own accord. It just can't be that. So what worries me is I think tactically Frank can get things right. But I think this game, we beat them a couple of weeks ago and quite convincingly. And then he's gone there, and I think it was all about him. What I said to my missus when it was on at the beginning, all the lights went dark. Frank walks out on the pitch, lights come on, and he's there. Like, I said to her, I went, I don't like this. She's like, what? I went, look, I'm not, you can't get into it with him. Do you know what I mean? But I went, I just don't like it. It was made about him, his comments. We're like, oh, but they've scored 3 against this. They've scored 2 against them. They've done this. What about us? When are you going to start thinking about us? What we scored 2 against Man City. We done this. We done that. It was all about them and praising them to the hilt. And then he was coming out with silly comments like, yeah, well, all these fans that don't like me won't say it to my face. Well, at the end of the game, you got your wish, because when you walked over there, they told you exactly what you think here. So the performance was disgusting. The attitude was disgusting. He got booed at the end of them, and like they was all there together, and he stepped forward and it went. So they weren't booing the team; they was booing him. So if he doesn't realise that this ain't acceptable by the away fans that tell him, who supposedly the loyal ones, I hate that phrase.
You too.
But if he doesn't get it today and he doesn't come out. We've seen these players go guns blazing, and we've seen our players attack. Forget the quality of the opposition. It's the mindset of how you set up to do it. If you do it and you lose, fair play. We ain't expected to beat everyone. At the minute, we can't beat anyone. But if you go out with that, I'm going to sit back, protect a 0-0, then that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So if you set up to attack and try and attack, you might get some chances. But as you said, 2 shots. But seriously, we only been having 1 in 45, and that's not for the first time this season. That's been quite irregular. So it has to tell you that's by design. And he said something about, I'm not enjoying my time at the minute. Well, no fucking nor are we enjoying it.
Yeah.
You know, so pull your finger out your arse, look at the team sheet, forget who you're playing. Obviously, you understand who you're playing and what shape they're going to do and what they might do to you. But 85 to 90% of your preparation has to be what we can do, not what they're going to do. You know, we all moaned at Ange last year saying he doesn't care about the other team. We're doing our thing. This is the total opposite. This is caring too much. I thought it was going to be a little bit of both. That he cared about us, but, you know, understood what they might do and can counteract it. This just does complete flop and go, right, what are they going to do? And then we'll all just stand there and defend. Like, I don't know. I could go on for ages. I'll let Wayne speak. But, yeah, that was my initial reaction to that, Dave.
No, 100%. Look, I think, you know, fair enough. You can, you're not going to win every game of football, but it's just some of the stuff he says off the back of it. Like, to your point, they scored 3 here and 3 there, and it's like, yeah, but we smashed them up at our place. They didn't look like scoring, and he's lost the away fans, which previously he tried to praise to try and keep them on side. He's lost them now. Chance of boring Tottenham and stuff like that, sort of being labelled at him. But he seems very unwilling to change, which, I'm a bit conflicted, because he says he wants to go into today's game being aggressive, being attacking and stuff. But then also off the back of the Brentford game, he spoke about, well, if you can't score goals, you've got to lock it up at the other end and look to try and win games that way, and maybe, nick it off a set piece or crosses into the box. And we can sit here and moan about some of the quality of our attacking players, which he done recently off the back of that game as well, pointing out, how many times we gave away the ball and stuff. But, if you're setting them up to play safe, not make runs in behind and not feed them runs. So I think, 7 through balls all season? I mean, that's absolutely shocking. That is by design. That is by the manager. It's sort of like, what do you expect? You're not helping the situation. He just seems like he's unwilling to change. And, the fact that he's now lost the away fans, it'd be interesting to see what the atmosphere is like today, which we'll get on to in just a moment. But Stevie, I want to bring you in. I mean, look, Tottenham come into the day desperate for a win, sitting in the bottom half and having just won 2 of our last 9 league games. How important is this match for Spurs right now? Not just for points, but also just for a bit of belief around the place. Because, not being funny, but if none of us are sitting here believing, people inside the club are sort of losing faith, how do we expect players to want to sign on here in January?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You wonder whether or not the players are in that position as well too, where they kind of see the writing on the wall and they realize that the season is on the brink of slipping away as well too. This would be like the second straight season where the season is pretty much lost in the middle portion of the season. And so at that point you're like, okay, well, what are we playing for? Is this going to be a situation where Mickey Van de Ven goes to the gaffer again and says, hey, well, you know what, we're already in 15th place, it doesn't look like this thing is going to happen, so let's go ahead and just kind of consolidate and try to make a run in the Champions League or whatever the case may be. And then all of a sudden we can't have that type of mentality. And so from that standpoint, you would probably think that Thomas Frank is going to play with a little bit of urgency, right? And so the question isn't necessarily do we have to win? It's like, how are we going to go about trying to actually get this win? Because one of the biggest issues that I had about Brentford was the fact that, okay, cool, so you don't have Papsar, he's away at AFCON. You don't have Lucas Bergvall, to fill into that position. You don't have Xavi Simons because he's on a 3-match ban. And so how are we going to try to figure out a way to be creative? How are we going to figure out a way to push forward? So bring in a third center back, use your wing backs, play wide, and then move Mohamed Kudus and RKM to central areas. And at the very least, you're going to be a little bit better on the counterattack, and you're going to have some of those opportunities where you can play balls forward. And that was not the case at all. When you play 3-6s, you're essentially signaling that you're not playing to win at all, right? Like, that's when I saw that lineup, I was like, oh, this is the first time I think I've ever seen a Tottenham coach literally put a team out that was not geared towards winning. Mm-hmm. And it's like the message that sends, not just to the fans, but also to the players as well too. We're not actively trying to win. And now all of a sudden you're going into a match like versus an upstart like Sunderland, who are 100% organized. They're not the most they're not a side that's filled with a lot of athleticism, but what they are is they're pacey, they're physical, and they're not going to be afraid of you at all. Look at what they did when they went down to Stamford Bridge, and they literally just they literally hung around and nicked one at the end. And they come in with the attitude that they were expecting to win, regardless of where they're at. They're expecting to win. They have leadership in Granit Xhaka. And they're a team that believes that they can beat anybody. And now all of a sudden we're coming off a match where our coach was actively not trying to win.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? I don't get it.
Well, that's why Sunderland are flying high at the minute. They're playing with no fear. You even look at some of the bigger teams they've gone up against, the likes of the Cities, the Arsenals, Chelseas. They gave them a much better run, a much better game than what we have. We've paid these teams far too much respect. Like, you look at their manager, he's being brave. He's sending these players out there. You've got nothing to lose. With us, we're playing so scared. And I think, it's contributing to us shelling results, contributing to lack of confidence on the pitch and lack of belief in what we're doing and stuff like that. It's absolutely, absolutely shocking. And look, that's why I don't see Frank changing his ways, and it's very hard for a manager to sort of change his ways when what he's done has got him success in the lower half of the Premier League. But when you're at the top half of the Premier League, it requires a different skill set, a sort of different approach and a different mentality. And I just don't think this guy has it whatsoever. But look, at the end of the day, today is a massive game. You lose to Sunderland. That makes the gap between us and them even bigger, makes European spots, even the likes of a Europa Conference League spot, even harder to get and even less attainable. And to be honest with you, you're near enough writing your season off if you don't win today. To be honest with you, the best you can sort of hope for is mid-table obscurity. So we really need to start winning and start reining these teams in above us back in a little bit again to give ourselves that fighting chance come the end of the season. And one of my big worries is that Thomas Frank is also sitting there waiting for Kulusevski, Solanke and Madison and that to come back and sort of change his fortunes. But sure, we were sort of told at the start of the season, you might not see any of these guys all this season due to the injuries and stuff like that. So he's got to find a way. He can't just sit there and moan about the players being out. At the end of the day, it wasn't an excuse for Jose. It wasn't an excuse for Conte. Certainly wasn't an excuse for Ange. And it's certainly not going to be an excuse for this long-haired frizzy fuck either. I'm sick of him. Anyway, we've got Jordino292 says, won't be in today. Our lot are playing. Happy New Year's, Dave, and please shut those red and white vermin up. That's the plan today. We need to win. We need the 3 points. We need to claw them back in so that we can sort of salvage our own season and sort of have a bit of momentum heading into 2026. And look, best of luck in your game today as well, my man. Hopefully you win. Happy New Year to you as well. We've got Jerome says it cannot go any lower. Thomas Frank, just hold my beer. I swear you find the way for us all to say that was the worst performance so far. Jerome, for me, it's just the guy has come in and completely lowered the standards in and around the football club, the standards in and around the fan base. And that was one of my big worries when we sort of signed the guy. It's like, where's our ambition? Where's our standards? Like, yeah, fair enough, sack Ange. But you had plenty of time. The whole football world was open. It was the summer. Go and bring in a manager of a certain caliber, of a certain experience, knowing that you're going into Champions League. Like, you got Thomas Frank sitting there going, well, we're in the Champions League, but we're not a Champions League club. So, okay, yeah, I think many fans sort of can understand that to a certain degree, but that's the ambition and where the club want to be. And at the end of the day, you bring in a more experienced manager that knows how to handle the fixture list. Maybe we do a little bit better in it, than what we're faring so far and stuff like that. And look, for me, Jerome, I just don't like the way he's lowered all the standards around the place. All of a sudden, we win a Europa League. We're talking about coming into this season, maybe going on a cup run and maybe sneaking a European spot. And now all of a sudden we're told mid-table is the best we can hope for. This is where we're at. This is our level. I'm absolutely fucking sick of it. If you've got no ambition around the football club, right, you're just sitting there aimlessly in the wind, waiting to go further and further down the table. Then we've got this. Go on.
Imagine that, David. A Tottenham head coach that literally went out and said that, yeah, we're a Champions League team, but we're really not. And it's like, excuse me, did we not go out there and win a trophy last year in an absolute shit season where we were still able to do something absolutely like we earned that. We earned the Champions League.
Well, them quotes for me is exactly why he's not ever going to win anything. Right. And he doesn't understand this level because he sort of diminished the Europa League. I'm sitting there, I'm going, you fraud. You would love to have that on your CV, you absolute fraud. Diminishing the Europa League. You can't even get a club into Europe to manage in them competitions, let alone fucking, diminishing it. That one drove me mad. And then we've got, did you want to say something, Martin?
No.
No. And then we've got this from Quantum Rage 69, member for 38 months. Big up. Good to see you in the house. Happy New Year to you all. We can win games. If you don't even bother to try and win, graveyard football is slowly killing our club. And this is another thing. As Spurs fans, I think a large majority do want to see their football played a certain way. They do want to see us brave. They do want to see us go after teams. They do want to see us try and play football and live up to that motto, to dare is to do. Next, Frank will be asking us to change that. I'm absolutely fed up. You know, look, the football has to improve. He can sit there and say he doesn't have the quality of players. No, he just doesn't have the players to play his defensive system the way he wants. But if he instruct them to be a bit braver, you know, there's players there of a certain technical ability. You know, I went and you know, sort of looked at the stats from Xavi Simons, Colin Mawani, Kudus in seasons gone by before they come to Tottenham. They are well underperforming their numbers compared to what they usually put up at other clubs and stuff like that. That's not down to the ability or the talent. That's just down to us not getting the best out of him. Colin Mawani usually averages in around 12 to 15 goals a season. Can barely muster shot on goal for the guy at this moment in time. It's absolutely shocking. But big up Quantum Rage. Good to see you in the building up. You keep well. Now, Soren, on to you, my man, because we do have to talk a little bit about, you know, the chants that came from the away end on New Year's Day. Look, many people, you know, pointed to the away fans as the benchmark for how the team should be supported during this difficult period. Even Thomas Frank done it, which in my opinion was trying to drive a wedge between fans. One section is better than the other. However, during the away match against Brentford, those same supporters were reportedly heard chanting, boring, boring Tottenham. Given the contrast, what do you expect the atmosphere to be like today at our home stadium? And do you think the fans were right to make their feelings clear, or did it cross a line, Soren?
I don't know where to start. I really don't.
I'm sure you have a lot to say on it.
Look, let's just rewind everything a little bit. So last year and the season before, we had a manager that was an attacking football manager that played or supposedly played the team to our strengths, and we would attack. It didn't matter who we played, we would attack them. We would play our way of football. And everybody moaned. People were moaning that we shouldn't be. We should be defensively. We should be changing tactics, and we should be doing this, and we should be doing that. The manager don't move his arms. He stands there with his arms in his pocket. He's got no passion. You've then changed to a manager that's more defensive and changes his team basically to suit the opposition rather than play to our strengths, and it's all wrong again. You've got Daniel Levy that supposedly didn't want to win anything other than blah, blah, blah. And now he's gone. We've got Thomas Frank telling us we're not a Champions League team. We're not going to win anything. We're a mid-table team. And we're moaning again. So it just tells us that the whole club is absolutely fucked. It is absolutely on its knees. Everybody blaming Daniel Levy and then blaming Ange. It just, I mean, yes, it's maybe been run wrong, but it's not got any better. In fact, it's getting worse. Yeah. The football is some of the worst football we've ever seen. Should the fans be saying, look, you know, I've sat here so many times and said, as a football fan at a game, we should get behind the team, and at halftime, full time, we should boo. But when you've got absolutely nothing to excite you during a game, other than waiting for the whistle to blow and hope you haven't conceded a goal, then I was sat there watching that game, and I you could hear it on the TV, that boring. And at first, I thought it was the opposition.
Yeah, so did I.
And then you realise it's actually our own fans. And I think I saw somebody put up a message not so long back in one of the chats saying, you know, the away privilege of fans and you know, money talk. That's just utterly bullshit. Any fan that is watching football or watching Tottenham Hotspur at the moment and is excited to sit and watch a game, then you know, to me, this is not football. This is not football. And like Steve said, when you go to a game and the only object, and we're not talking Man City or a Bayern Munich or a Real Madrid or a Barcelona, we're talking bloody Brentford and that, and the only thing that's in your mind is not losing, then that shows you the state of Tottenham Hotspur at the moment. Now, should we get rid of Thomas Frank? No, I'm not in that camp. I think he's got to be given some time. And I'm not putting all the blame on him, because he's playing with a squad that is just absolutely drained of any confidence, any motivation. And yeah, that's his job. I get that. But when the club around you is falling to bits and you're basically just firefighting, then it's not a good situation. And we sit there, people are saying, oh, we're glad Brennan Johnson's gone. He had to go. That was our top scorer last season. Everybody's moaning about when Kane went and when Son went. We've just once again, and I'm not saying he was a great player, but once again, we've sold our top scorer and replaced him, in a sense, with Mawani, who has scored 3 goals this season in all competitions. What hope have we got as a club? And 2 of those were against his old team, which probably felt sorry for him and let them in. And, people are saying, oh, play him up front. Yeah, let's play another striker that can't bloody at the back of the net. It's the whole team. I honestly don't. I don't know what the answer is with Tottenham Hotspur at the moment, because it's one of those when you look at it and you think, before we'd come on here and it'd be like, it's game day, baby, and all that.
Yeah.
Like, now you think, fucking hell, it's game day again.
Yeah.
What's coming today? And we're playing Sunderland. They're sitting in 7th, and Tottenham Hotspur are in 13th, 13, 14th or something. People going on about how diabolical the football was under Ange last season and how it was the manager's fault and the players went and won the cup for us. They changed everything. Well, where are the fucking players now? Where are these players that could all of a sudden turn up? Why aren't they changing it now? What? If they changed it under Ange, why aren't they changing it under Frank? The whole team needs to change. The whole club needs to change. All you lot that were sat out there begging for a new manager, begging for Levy to go, begging for things to change, you've got what you've asked for. Are you happy? Because it's the most diabolical period in Tottenham's history that I've seen. Conte was bad. This is worse.
Yeah. There's no joy in this whatsoever. And, look, to be fair on the contest, I think we saw like moments of joy from Kane and Son, getting into Champions League and stuff. But, right now, I don't think anyone's enjoying this. Even people that are still sort of sticking in behind Frank, it's more out of resilience or, just wanting to back a guy rather than, actually enjoying what's going on and stuff. But honestly, when we're in this much of a mess, I do think you need someone that's going to come in and inspire everybody, bring everybody onto the same page. This guy's had his chance and he's failed to do so. I think he's made massive mistakes like Ange Postecoglou made, driving a wedge between the fan base, calling some fans not loyal or stuff like that. And it's just, when you look at the players entering the pitch, yeah, hunger comes from within, on them, but inspiration and, stuff like that comes from the manager. And I just don't see it, and, he's not also sitting there saying, I'm the guy to drive this forward. This is what we're going to do. This is where we're going. It's all, we're in transition. We're this, we're that. And he's almost dampering expectations. That's fine at a club like Brentford, but not at a club like Tottenham, no matter the state you're in. You got to come in and inspire people. And I just don't see it happening. Like you look at Crystal Palace, first day of the window, they bring in a signing. Yeah, it's a signing we didn't want, but why aren't we doing that then? I don't think he inspires the transfer committee to go and get what he wants. I don't think he inspires the owners to really double down and back him. He certainly doesn't inspire the fan base. Let's not forget this guy came in with huge fanfare. 99% of the fan base were happy with this appointment. He's lost them all along the way within a few months. He doesn't inspire the players. And, whatever he's trying to coach clearly isn't getting across. So for me, it's just, I think we're just going to have to sit here and, be patient with Frank until better options become available maybe later on in the season or towards the summer. But I think ultimately, where we are right now, it seems like Frank is writing this season off. And if Frank is writing this season off with some of the rhetoric he's talking about being in transition, this, that, and the other, then, it doesn't really give anyone any belief, heading in towards the end of the season, which is a huge concern for me. We've got Wayne Bonner says, what do you all think about the Paqueta links? I'll take Paqueta in. I like him, but look, we've got a host of sort of players that can play in that number 10 role. You got Madison coming back, Kulusevski coming back. You bring in Paqueta, Kudus can also play in there. We brought in Xavi Simons. You know what I mean? It's all of a sudden you're going to have 6-7 players fighting for one spot in this system.
Imagine him and Richie together. They'd both be laying on the floor more than they're standing on their feet.
But also, Paquette has been linked a lot to a lot of clubs, but I did watch something not so long ago where he's got a bit of a problem with gambling and stuff like that, and I just wonder how many clubs are going to take that risk on the guy, knowing that, like, you know, he can be gone like that for months at a time and stuff like that.
Dave, just to jump in on that one, we go on about players. Oh, we don't want to sign this player because he's always injured. We don't want to sign this player because he's always injured. So we go and sign players that are never injured, and then as soon as they come to us, they're injured. So we might as well go the opposite way.
Yeah.
Somebody with gambling debts and who's always injured, and he might actually come right for us.
Yeah. I was thinking that myself the other day, actually. Sorry.
The state of where we are now. You got to start thinking like that.
Yeah. It's
just go
really.
sign anybody that, you know, and hope, you know, it's a roll of a dice when they come to Tottenham. I mean, look at Solanke, never injured, comes to us, and
Never been
injured.
God
knows what's happening with him at the moment, but there's more.
Never been injured.
Yeah. We're cursed. Yeah. We're absolutely cursed in that regard. But Martin, on to you, my man, as well. Look, do fans have the responsibility to stay supportive during the games, or is vocal criticism a natural and fair response? And also, do you think fans will go into today's game willing to back the team today, or on edge, sort of waiting to be convinced?
I think, we should back the team, because regardless of the manager, regardless of the players, we support Tottenham Hotspur. I was supporting Tottenham Hotspur for any one of them on the pitch were even born. So, they come and go. But when you're watching, like, the Poch era, every fan and everyone, whether you liked him or we knew we needed more, we had our 11, we didn't have a 15 or 16, but the enjoyment that we felt and the togetherness that we had, right? And everyone's pining for Poch. I don't think they're pining for Poch. I think they're pining for what Poch give us.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And that's what we're searching for since the day he left. Because I was in bits that night, do you know what I mean? Because I could see what he'd done, and you knew when he went, Jose or anyone who was coming in after that, Jose would give you lift because it was going from one to what we're going elite, we might be changing. But it's quickly not that. But that feeling for them 5 years, even the first year when he come in, it was building and building. In the second year, it built. And we're on this journey and we're all in it together. And then all the pundits, like Gary Neville, who sits and slags every one of our players off and goes, they're all going, oh, Tottenham, I love to watch Tottenham. This is our second team. Everyone wants to watch Tottenham. It was brilliant. We won nothing, but we won nothing before, and we've won one trophy since. But the feeling of the fans together. So it's not a case of the fans are just, we're spoiled, we've got this, we're entitled to that. In our recent past, we've been knocking on the door. And for Tottenham fans to be knocking on the door is a big achievement. Because we used to be serial winners, but we're not now. So to go on that journey and have all that, fans are craving that at the minute. So the more they're craving that, the more they're looking at this football against Brentford the other day and they're going, I cannot connect the two. This is not us, right? This is not what we're about. And especially the younger ones who have grown up with a bit of Harry Redknapp and then a Poch and then Jose and Conte, and now we're where we are. This is the first time they've experienced stuff. We're all old enough and been there and seen it before. But that is what I say. For Poch, for me, and that coming back. So them fans were pulling together. They were going all over Europe. They were going everywhere. We was big and we enjoyed it, and everyone envied us. Do you know what I mean? Like, we come second, third in a 2-horse race with the championship now, but we were there most of the season. And for us, that's massive to be challenging. All right, we can get top 4 in Europe, but to be going, cool, this could be close. Well, I've never thought that in my life. We've got a chance here. All right, Leicester went and done it. But to even be in that conversation of like, it was wow. And I think we're so craving that now. And you know what I mean? People say like with the away fans and all that, it's a privilege to go. It used to be. Now they're paying more than the home fans and spending more time travelling than doing that to be punished. So it's not a privilege. They're actually being tortured twice as much as the home fans. But they say our away record's great, but our performances ain't great, and the football they're seeing ain't great. They're just walking out of it and going, cool, we got lucky today, we got out there with 3 points. That's the only thing they've got over the home. So it's hard for us sitting here. We all live in different parts of the world. Or just us four here don't even live in the same country. So there's fans all around the world. But these ones who are out there grinding it out up and down in the cold, rain, snow, petrol, trains, planes, whatever they're doing, you know, I envied that. I used to watch Ben and Sim when they were when we were in that Champions League run. I used to watch them think, I'd love to be there in Ajax and doing all this and doing that. Now I'd think I wouldn't want to do it because, and that's what's been sucked out of us. So to say get behind the team and let's all be great is really, really hard to do because and now you've got Frank in who's saying, calm down, lads, you ain't Champions League. We're going to lose 30 games in a year. We're going to do this. We're only going to play well 10 times. And it's like, you know, it's just being dragged and dragged at you. So someone I feel at the top needs to come in and go, draw the line. This is our attitude. This is what we want to do. They should have gone in there on the weekend or whenever it was Thursday and said, this ain't acceptable. Any of you lot do that again, you're all gone. You're all playing with reserves. And I'll put the reserves in here because that's not acceptable. You know, you're getting, forget the money, but they're all being paid well. Right, to come in there and to perform like that and think they can walk off the pitch and go, that's acceptable, go home to their nice lives. It's us that suffer, not them. We're the ones that ruins our week. Frank goes, I have 24 hours, I'm back on the train again, I'm all good. Lucky for you, mate. Lucky for you. We don't, we're carrying it, sleeping it, waking up with it. It's depressing. It's not
Martin, do you not think, though, going back to your point, like under Poch, and it was like an era. If you can go back slightly before that, and you go back to Martin Jol, you go back to Harry Redknapp, and you go back to Poch, and you watch those games, and virtually every Tottenham fan had the belief we could win every game. If we were 1-0 down, we'd come back. But the big difference between those three managers and the last 5 managers we've had is Redknapp, Martin Jol, and Poch were all man managers.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, you know, they weren't world class. I mean, I'm not saying they weren't world, but you know, they weren't the win now style managers. They were just people that would come in and make every player believe they were.
Well, Aaron Redknapp would walk in that day and go to him, "You come here, son. You're my man. You're going to do this." The geezer's on. He's up in the air. Going, oh wow, this geezer loves me.
Yeah.
And so you want to go and play. This one's going, well, calm down.
That's it. But, you know, Martin Jol and Redknapp and Poch, they would have gone to players and it would be like, look, we can win this. We can win this. Whereas you've got the belief now under Frank that he's probably gone in there and says, we don't want to be losing today. We don't want to be losing today. Let's not lose today.
Get my head around that, though.
Yeah, you know,
I can't get my head around that.
I can't remember who it was, but was it a year or two back where somebody came out and they said, oh, you know, it was all about, there wasn't a winning mentality within Tottenham. And it was supposedly came from Daniel Levy all the way down. Well, there certainly isn't winning mentality in there now, is there? You know, and look, those people that say, you know, we've now got a manager that supposedly is a tactical manager. You know, he changes his system, he changes his thing. The guy, and look, again, I'm not asking for Frank to go because I do think he needs a bit more time. But to me, when we talk about fans getting behind the team, and I've shouted, you know, I've supported that every fan should get behind the team, doesn't matter what. But those players have got to come out right now because we are at the lowest point, and they've got to give those fans a reason to actually get behind them now. Whereas before, I was the opposite. I would say no, the fans have got to help lift the players. And the players.
If the Spurs fans were enjoying this and clapping and singing for 90 minutes, I'd be sitting there thinking, "What are you watching that I ain't?"
Yeah,
because we're real people. You know, it's. You're not like PSG who stand there, bang the drum, 10-0 up or 10-0 down. They still carry on. It's just a day out for singing and doing what they do. We watch the football, feel the football, and yes, you want to be entertained, and it's a two-way street. But it can't just be all put on the fans.
No,
because it just can't.
But if you watch the football at the moment, if you go back to last season under Ange, and you know, you go back to even Conte a little bit and Mourinho. There were always, and I know we had some better players and things like that, but there were always an instance in a match where something would happen and it would excite the fan. There's nothing, the build-up is so slow. There is no on the break. The only difference I've noticed over the last couple of games is the fact that we're not really playing out from the back at the moment. We're trying to get it up a little bit quicker then, but the point is...
But even that we can't do, though, Soren. We send it long.
We can't do that.
We don't even send it to Richarlison, who's the only guy up there that can win it.
Yeah, but at the moment, there is absolutely nothing that when you see... you see sort of having a break, and then I think we were talking about it. I don't know if it was Steve or Martin or yourself that mentioned it before we started, where you had Spence running down the left-hand side and Odegaard goes past him, but there's no ball to him. There is absolutely nothing exciting. The only excitement that Tottenham fans have got at the moment is the final whistle if we haven't conceded. It's the only excitement.
The thing is, our goalkeeper got a yellow card at 60 minutes for time wasting at Brentford. That's where we're at. That's the reality of the situation.
And do you know what? Against Brentford, and I can't remember the last time I did this, I was ready to turn the TV off and not bother watching the last one because I knew we wouldn't score and I knew we wouldn't concede. And it was like, what's the point in wasting another 20 minutes of my life? I can be in bed asleep.
Exactly.
And as a Tottenham fan, that's the worst thing you can be. That's the worst position you can be in, especially when you're somebody that's supposedly as positive as me. When you don't want to watch your team play because you're literally bored to tears, then I'm sorry, but it's terrible.
The interesting thing, Martin, is you're talking about man management. And you brought up Harry Redknapp. Let's not forget he was also the guy that turned Peter Crouch into a 100-goal scorer in the Premier League. A guy that had no business being in the Premier League. He turned him into an absolute
into what he was.
That's exactly right. And the interesting thing about this is that there used to be a belief when it came to clubs in England, and it was a holy trinity, right? A club was players, manager, fans. And even in seasons when we didn't necessarily have the quality, a manager would not come out and blow smoke up the supporters' asses by talking about how we just have to get consistency in this and we're good, but we're still working. It's like no. There was a time where a manager would literally say, "Hey, listen, we have a few guys that necessarily aren't up to par." But that being said, this is what we have, and we have to get behind these guys, and it is what it is, right? So come on, lads, let's get behind these guys because they're absolutely going to need it. And because of it, there was no divide within the fan base because we had coaches that refused to blow smoke up the ass of supporters. And that's my biggest problem right now is the fact that me personally, I think it's actually kind of an insult because my eyes can actually see it. Literally every single week I can see it. And every single week I hear Thomas Frank talk about how this is, this is a good team, but there's things that we have to work on. It's like, no. Because if that was the case, we would actually see the improvement from week to week to week to week. And instead we're seeing absolute regression from week to week to week. And I have to listen to this dude talk about how this is a good team. This is a big club. And it's like, well, dude, fucking act like it. Stop trying to divide everybody and actually just say it what it is. Call it for what it is. Like that's not man management. That's bullshit.
I think the thing is, and there's a comment in the chat about they'd love to see us go in and manage this team. None of us are sat here saying that we should, we expect to go and win these games. What we're trying to say is that we expect to go and try and compete in these games, not just go there to make sure we don't lose. And tell you what, I'd rather see my team go to Brentford and have a go, but lose than not have a go and draw 0-0 and probably have one shot on target the whole match. That's the difference. I want my team to go there and actually try to do something in the game. Try to do something, not just sit back and say, oh, we're too scared to actually have a go. I'd rather lose a game and come out and think, that was actually a good game of football.
That comment, though, that's just like saying to Frank, go and rewire a house. We're not football managers.
No.
Right? So it doesn't mean anything. We're football fans with opinions. We're not asking him to do anything. We're not telling him what to do. We're just voicing our opinion on how we see it. Right? And we're all entitled to it. Just because we're on here and we've got a face for it, people can sit in the comments and say what they want. Everyone's got an opinion. But we're not asking an electrician to do the football team, and we're not asking the football manager to rewire a house. So, that for me don't work.
Look, at the end of the day, I'm not being funny, but, you can throw comments out like that, but fans are the one that's uphold the standards. Managers, players, and everybody else will look to get away with things. The board always look to get away with things. It's only us fans that uphold the standards with our boo, showing our disgruntlement. That is quite frankly why this club hasn't been relegated last season. And, what will stop us from getting there this season is the fans upholding the standards, because everyone else inside the club seems to think it's okay to put in this shit. And at the end of the day, look, of course, everything isn't on Thomas Frank, but the reality is he's just not doing the job that everyone expected this guy to do. And, I'm not being funny, but he just doesn't understand the club we are. You look at, the best clubs around the world, they have an identity, their way of playing, and they bring in people accordingly that see the game their way, and they look to pair it up. We haven't done that here. We're just bringing in a manager and saying, right, whatever way he plays is our identity. But it doesn't match up with the fans. You've got older fans that have seen this club win trophies playing a certain way. You've got fans like me who had enjoyed the years under Pochettino, the years under Harry Redknapp, the years under Martin Jol. Managers like that who come in and give it a go. They understand what Tottenham are. Yeah. Tottenham fans don't want to see their team sit back and, almost like Floyd Mayweather on the rope, sparring teams and stuff like that. We're not. We've always been a club that has always given it a good go. And I'm not being funny, but we could sit here and moan about some of the attacking talent. We created more when we had fucking Stefan Everson up front, Chris Armstrong, players like that. You know what I mean? And it's just about having a go. I had massive concerns when this guy was glazing Bodo Glimt. A team that we smacked up under Ange, despite, us not being, great, leaking goals left, right, and centre and stuff like that. And this guy's going in there, glazing them, respecting them and stuff like that. And it's continued all season. And in fact, what I see is the smaller the team, the more he seems to glaze them. The worse the team, the more respect he seems to pay them. And I'm sorry, at Tottenham, that's not going to wash. Games like that should be simple. Guys, don't go out there and embarrass yourselves today. Go out there and enjoy it. Go and get the 3 points. You move on to the next game. But, I can only imagine the amount of tactics that they're being told going into these games, where the danger is, all the respect that they have to show them. And I think it sort of almost kills the players' enthusiasm for the game before they even go out there. At the end of the day, football is a sport. You want to enjoy playing your sport. You want to enjoy playing, and I just don't see any of these players enjoying themselves. And if they're not enjoying themselves, it's only going to keep going one way. And that's why I would urge a manager change, even temporarily, might just bring back, enjoyment to these players again. Once you see that, you'll start seeing a lot better. But, sometimes when you're in a managerial structure that is so overcoached, you're constantly being fed messages, constantly being told about how great the opposition is. It does drain the life out of you as a player. And I am seeing that right now with the players we got. At Brentford and smaller clubs, that's okay to do. Players will buy into that because a lot of them want the Premier League dream and they know their level, and that's where they are. At a club like Tottenham Hotspur, when these players are signed on, you've got to remember the pretense they signed on under. We're not going to be afraid of anybody. We're going to go after teams and we're going to look to try and go and win games and stuff like that. Now, all of a sudden, they're being told to sit back, respect, hit on the counter and stuff. It's just not working. His squad isn't built to play that way. And I'm not being funny, but I also don't want to build the squad in that pragmatic image because if we do and it doesn't yield results and get you up to where you want to go, all of a sudden you're turning that over again, bringing in, another 400 million sort of fucking rebuild, and we're never, ever going to get out of this situation. What the Spurs need to do, in my opinion, is bring in a manager and keep trying until a manager comes in and bears fruits, a bit like what Conte done in his first season. But then is when you double down and back this guy. I just worry that we've sacked so many managers now. We're sitting in and backing the wrong guy just out of defiance, saying we want to keep a manager, even though he hasn't done anything from the off to prove that he deserves this time or he deserves this backing. And no one's inspired. And that's where my big concern comes in around this whole thing altogether. But
Dave, surely the bosses from up there should be going, listen, I'm not telling you how to set up, but you need to be playing a bit more fun. It should come from the bosses. At least say
100%.
it's not being enjoyed here. What you're doing ain't working. Can you try and just try? Because you look like you ain't trying.
But there's another thing. Even if he is trying, he doesn't have the know-how. It's not the way he's played his football. It's not what's brought him success. You know, for me, even if he goes to try, does he have the know-how? Like, he's constantly out there telling us, we're working on it, we're working on it. I don't see anything being worked on. I see us doing the exact same things we relied on.
And he continues to go out there saying that he refuses to take the handbrake off either. Right? You're absolutely right. You wonder whether or not he actually has the know-how to do it, especially considering he has to control every single aspect from the back all the way to the front. And it's like, well, you guys, we have some players that actually have had some success under managers that actually allow them to go there and with some freedom to actually play it, play some inspiring front-footed football. And yet he literally comes out and publicly says that he just refuses to take the handbrake off.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, you look at Thomas Frank, and we can't lay all the blame at his feet, because
no, we
I'm
can't.
not saying he was great at Brentford, but some of the football Brentford played wasn't bad. And I get what he's done. He's come to Tottenham, and everybody was moaning about how many goals we could concede last season and the season before because of the way we played. He's tried to tighten it up, and at first he kind of succeeded, but then he started to tinker a little bit. Now, we sit here and saying that the football's boring. One of his first games against PSG, was it the Super Cup? And we basically defended and hit them on the break and blah, blah, blah. And there weren't many Tottenham fans moaning about the way we played. We were all lauding it. Great tactics, great game. We almost won it, against PSG. And yes, when they turned up the heat on us, we couldn't cope with it. I get that. But at least we had to go. At least we tried. Now
you could see a playing. That's the difference.
Yeah. But people saying the squad is shit and all this lot. We've got pretty damn good back four in Spence, in Van der Ven, in Kuti, and in Porro. They're not bad. They're a pretty damn good back four. Vicario, on his day, can have a really good game. Yeah, he makes mistakes, and I get that, and he's a liability. But as a back five, it's not bad. And then, people going on about, we're missing Maddison. Maddison hasn't been here all season. Kulu hasn't been here all season, but the football was okay to start with. Xavi Simons, one of the best young prospects in Europe came to Tottenham. Mwani, apparently, could score for fun on his day. Can't score for shit. And people say we've got a stronger squad than we did last season. Our back four has played more games this season than it did the whole of last season, probably put together, or probably 2 seasons. Yeah. So for people to come and say, we've got a shit squad and all this. The squad isn't that shit. It's maybe not deep enough, but it's the fear of losing at the club that is the fundamental problem at the moment. And until we go out there and say, right, for the next however many games, we're just going to go out there and we're going to give it a go. And if we win one of those games, we'll probably win the next one. But until we have a go, we can't win. Somebody said earlier in the comments that if you set up to be negative and to not lose, it's very rare you win. And that is so true. If you set up to win, or at least have a go, you've got a chance of nicking a goal or two. But I mean, we've gone from a team that was one of the highest scorers over the last few seasons. Yes, we conceded more, but now we can't even score a goal. It's just so negative within the club. The club has gone, and where we say, oh yeah, people have a go at me for praising things that Levy maybe did, but we look at it now, and the club is in absolute shambles. It just needs to be blown up.
Every department.
I don't know what's happened, because you kind of looked at it before and you felt a little bit of cohesion. You know, we look at it under Poch and we think, oh, what a great, you know, the whole club seemed to be going in the right direction. Yes, there were a lot of arguments about we didn't sign players and we didn't do this and we didn't do that. And at the end, you know, people moaning that Poch got sacked, but he you know, that era was coming to an end, and we weren't
free transfer windows with no signings. What do you expect him to do?
No, but see, that's an argument that's wrong, because there were chances to sign players. Poch turned them down, so I'm not going in that direction. But
because the quality in which we were trying to buy wasn't up to his standard. That's why he turns them down.
But the point was that it wasn't that we weren't prepared to buy anybody. You know, you can turn around and say, no, I don't want that player, but maybe this player. But anyway, that's not the argument. But the point is, at the moment, there is just no cohesion within the whole club. So when we're sat here, you know, moaning about Thomas Frank and he's not good enough, all managers need a chance to prove themselves at some point. And this is Thomas Frank's chance. Now, whatever's happening behind the scenes is affecting the way he's managing at the moment. He's a better manager than what we're seeing at the moment. I'm 100% sure of that. This is not just Thomas Frank. This is the whole club imploding. And when we sit here and say the players are shit, the players are not that shit. They are within the top 1% of professional football players. They are better than what we're seeing. So it's a combination of so many things that's just not right at the moment. And until that click happens, where we're saying the game against Brentford was the worst we've ever seen, and it can only get it could still get worse, and it will probably still get worse.
Yeah, the thing is,
and until those players sort of come out. And the best thing those players could do today at home is actually come out for the first 10 minutes and just absolutely have a go. And if the goal goes in, a whole team will suddenly play a hell of a lot better, because a goal goes in within 2 or 3 minutes. The crowd will suddenly get up for it as well. And then the players will play even better. And then you'll see something different to what we've seen. If you go out there and just say to the lads, right, look, 90 minutes, that's all we've got to hold out for. Well, you know,
you're told to go out not to do anything and not to win. Like, setting up not to lose is setting up not to win. If they're told that, this is never going to happen, and that spiral of what could happen is never going to come, is it?
Yeah, true. I want to take a couple of these chats, and then I do want to get into that conversation around, you know, the squad versus manager, because, you know, at times this season, Frank has come out and said, you know, pre-games, I want to go and play this way. I want to play aggressive. I want to play on the front foot. But in reality, what we see on the pitch doesn't match up. And, you know, then you question, are these players playing for the manager, or is the manager lying in what he's saying? Because, you know, where I think sometimes he's lying a little bit is he says he wants to play aggressive on the front foot and stuff, but then we're sitting so deep, you know, containing the opposition. We're inviting the pressure on. And because we sit so deep then, like, which was our big problem under Nuno, even when we had Kane and Son, the reason why it just didn't work is because when we sit so far deep, you're asking your attacking players almost to get on the ball, just on the edge of their own box. And sort of, you know, between 2 or 3 of them, link up and almost get you all the way up the other end of the pitch and go and score a goal. And that's why, for me, this is just never going to work with this sort of setup, you know. And this is why I do think he's lying, because this squad is more suited to playing on the front foot, going after teams, than what it is sitting back. And I've seen under Ange Postecoglou, you know, even if it's not to great effect, they can still produce more than what we're currently producing right now. And, you know, that's where I worry. But look, we'll come back to that, because I do want to have that conversation around the squad, you know, and versus maybe the manager getting the best out of them. Wayne Bonner says, who would you bring in as left back and why? I want that left back at Fulham, the American kid. You know, I'd like him to come in.
Anthony
for a doggy, Anthony Robinson. Yeah, I'd like him to come in. I like what I've seen from him. Steady in the Premier League for years as well. I know he's had a couple of injury problems here and there, but, you know, he's the guy I'd like to bring in. Good competition for Destiny Dog, and if you take one out, you bring another one in. One thing I like about Anthony Robinson is he can fucking cross a ball. You know, if you can have him crossing from one side, Porro from the other, you'll create a lot more chances. We've got this from Joker Davies, boring Tottenham. I did say it was a mistake to hire Frank, and his football is only mid-table at best, 21 months and counting, lads. Big up, Davey, and can't wait to fall asleep watching this game. And look, I mean, this is where it's getting the realms of. Eventually, I think the club are going to have to bite the bullet, because once fans start losing interest, people stop tuning into the games, people stop then going to the games, stop buying the merch and everything else. And once the money's affected, we know what the club end up doing. Look, I tried to highlight it in the summer, around Thomas Frank and going, I get the clamour to sack Ange Postecoglou and go in a new direction. Let's actually try and look at this from a logical sort of standpoint. And I got shut down at the time, Eddie. But look, it is what it is. But look, like I said, I don't want this guy to fail. I just want to win games. It's my only objective. And hopefully we can start doing that now in 2026, Eddie. Quantum Age 69 says, if Soren was, who is positive, is not, we are all doomed. And yeah, that's absolutely spot on. If Soren is starting to lose patience, it's really, really bad, because, and I mean this in a good way, but Soren can maybe tolerate a lot more, or give a lot more patience, which is a good thing in life, maybe than what someone like me would, for instance, So if Soren's at that point, or getting to that point, then we're in a bad situation. Wayne Bonner says, great effing stream. Absolutely love the passion. Big up, Wayne. Really appreciate the support. Look, you can see the pain. Even you guys in the comments and at home, we just want to win games. That's all we want to do. Just want to score a few goals and just get back to enjoying.
It's not personal to Frank. It's just not. People take it wrong. He's going to be the fall guy for the fans to aim their frustration at, and he's going to be the board's fall guy to go, look, well, and they've got the thing that he was Levy's man. They've got all these excuses. He is the fall guy, But at the end of the day, he is the one putting out on the pitch with the instructions. So the buck does stop. First, it is bus stop.
Look, the manager has to be accountable, just like the players and just like the owners at the end of the day, And if it's not working, at some point you do have to change the direction again. And Wayne Bonner also says mentality comes from the top. Over to you, Enoch. Well, look, it'd be interesting, because they sort of done a coup d'etat against Daniel Levy, sort of ousting him out from the club. Then they sort of audited all the transactions that he's done and stuff with Tottenham, which seems like they're trying to force him out of the club altogether, maybe force him to sort of sell up his shares and stuff like that. But then also the rhetoric that they came in with, that, we want to get Tottenham back to winning and, this, that, and everything else. And it's just sort of like, this is where I think they've missed the trick. Like, they're sort of sitting there showing patience. And for me, are they showing patience because they're wet behind the ears? They've never had to actually sit in and make these decisions and stuff like that. And is it actually coming back to our detriment? Like, I'm not being funny, but, you look at Chelsea, sack the manager in 5th. You know what I mean? And the reason why they've done it, they say, now I know there's a bit of back and forth between the manager and the owners and stuff, but they sort of want to save their season, according to them, sort of kick on and see what they can do second half of the season. Whereas we're sitting here, we've got to be patient, this, that, and the other. I'm not being funny, but, at elite level sports, you've got to make decisions very, very quickly, and you've got to make the right decisions. And for me, I'm just not sure where this patience is going to bring us. We've shown patience for months now, and we're getting further and further behind them European spots. And look, in fairness, we've changed a lot at board level, stuff like that. We've changed the manager. We've changed a lot over this club at the summer. But the reality is, it's not working. And I'm not sure patience is the right approach right now for me. To dare is to do, live up to that motto, set a standard for any manager that you're going to bring in prior to Frank, any players that you're going to bring in here. Also use this January as a statement to get players out the door in a fashion that maybe we haven't done in years gone by, and start setting that culture, that winning culture. But by sitting here going, patience, let it breathe, let's give the players time, let's give the manager time. You're not setting any sort of standard or any sort of winning culture at the top. All you're setting is come on in, guys. We will give you 6 months, 2 years. Take your time, be patient. Doesn't matter the results and stuff like that. And this is where I think the Lewis family have missed the trick. Words are one thing. Sending Vinay out to give us lip service is one thing. But following through with actions is another. And that's where people stand up and take notice, when you follow through with actions. And that's where I think the Lewis family are really wet behind the ears. And they're sitting there right now, probably listening to advisors, rather than actually making their own decisions on what's best for this club, because they don't have the experience at managing a football club. And that's why this shit is continuing. But they really need to start coming out and making big decisions this January, with the manager, with the playing squad, and start sending out signals that this is not good enough and we will not tolerate. If we want to be a new Tottenham, we don't sit here and give guys and continue to give them new contracts like we've done in years gone by when they don't deserve it. You bounce them out the door. And if you can't get a fucking money for it, you bounce them out the door so that you can free up that squad place and you can bring in a better player of better quality, which then also sends out the message to the squad that you will not have any more off days. You don't turn up when you feel like it. And if you do, you're going to follow suit. So, that's for me where I think the Lewis family have missed a trick. And I think that comes down to inexperience. What?
Quick question. Do you honestly think anything is going to change from supposedly Levy running the club rather than the Lewis family running Levy, who ran the club?
Well, no, I said this at the time.
I don't think anything is going to change until the Lewis family have gone. I think you say that they haven't got a clue how to run a football club. They've actually been in charge for the last 25 years.
Well, the dad was in charge of most of it.
Pardon?
Their dad was in charge of most of it.
They've grown up with it. They are business people. They know what they're talking about. They're not as wet behind the ears as we think. What's the name? What's the daughter called? Vivian. She's been coming to the matches for a long time.
Yes, one thing not just suddenly turned up and actually being in the chair and making a decision. Sure. You know what I mean?
You cannot tell me that family do not know how to run this club. As much as we want to put all the blame on Daniel Levy, we were told he had to go because he was fucking up all the chance to sell the club. As soon as he went, the Lewis family came in and told us the club isn't for sale. So maybe it's the opposite that he was trying to.
They can run the business well, don't mean they can run the football side well, which is what we've seen. And there is the two parts.
Same as what's been for the last 25 years.
Exactly.
And you leave it. So you cannot tell me, as a family whose money is basically behind Tottenham, have not been watching what's been going on and thought, do you know what? We've got to do the total opposite to what we've been doing for the last 25 years.
But the spreadsheets have been good for that 25 years, and they're progressing and building from a 80-odd million investment to an 8 billion investment or 4 billion, whatever they want. So the business side is great. And if now we're asking them to change the football side to align with the business side, that's what they've got to get right.
Well, yeah, that's what they've got to get right. But the point that I'm trying to make is that, we sit here and say that they don't, that they're green and all this. They are not as green as people think they are. They will have. No, it's about getting the right people in again. And this is the complaints we had against Daniel Levy, that he couldn't hire the right people. And until they hire the right people, there's a lot of people in the chat. There's a lot of people in the WhatsApp groups. There is a lot of people on Twitter and all this lot saying, get rid of Frank. And this is the exact argument that you've put against Daniel Levy, that he was getting rid of managers too soon. And all of a sudden, that's what we want. Get rid of Ange.
That was my argument about getting rid of managers too soon. My argument was about backing managers that have proof on their CV and everything they've been at.
We complain about the amount of managers we've sacked, but then we sit here and say, sack another one.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I do get what you're saying, but there's also, such thing as backing the wrong guy. And I think this is where we've sort of backed ourselves into with Thomas Frank. I think with Conte, he came in, he got his Champions League. Teams went a bit tits up in the second season. That's where the club needed to show a bit of patience with the guy and back the guy, given that he's proven everywhere he's been what he can yield if you give him that. Same with Jose Mourinho, came in, got green shoots out of it. When things went a little bit tough, they pulled the trigger to save to get top 4. We're now sitting here down in 13th, backing a guy when we sack managers because Joseph was sacked in 7th in a cup final. Conte was sacked or walked out of this club in 4th. Nuno was sacked in 8th or 9th, and now we're sitting here in 13th. And it's like, this is how far the sort of standards have sort of fallen. It's no longer, and like the thing is with Thomas Frank, it's clear he's just not the right guy to bring this guy forward. Even if you do back him, the way he plays, he's going to lose fans every time he loses a game. You know, and a lot of the way he plays is set up not to lose, which means you are going to lose the majority of games. It's what relegation teams end up doing. They set up not to lose, and that's why they end up getting relegated and stuff like that.
But Dave,
because we've made the mistake of sacking managers that do have the CV and the nous, you know, to manage big clubs, it doesn't mean we should sit in here behind a guy that's completely wrong. I warned in this situation years ago that this was going to come. If we keep, you know, sacking managers that are clearly capable of running clubs like this, we're going to be stuck behind a guy that doesn't have the thing, and it's going to be big trouble. And this is where we are now. Just because we sack managers that have been capable doesn't mean we should sit here and back the wrong guy.
No, but Dave, right? You tell me what the goal was, or what the goal is now of the owners. What have they told Thomas Frank to do? We don't know. So they could have turned around.
They made the change in the summer and released a statement. They sat down to Postecoglou and said the new guy coming in, and the reason why they're making the change is to go and compete on all four fronts. That was in the statement when they sat. So we know what the job is.
Daniel Levy said that. Daniel Levy said we want to compete on all four things. That doesn't necessarily mean that's, you know, he was the first one to come out and say that we need to compete on.
But the Lynch family also released a statement through Vinay saying they want to bring this club back to being success and competing up the top. Well, this is far from it.
This is far from it. So it's, I mean, anybody can come out and say this is what we want. Doesn't mean to say that, you know, when we're sitting here and saying that Thomas Frank is the wrong manager for this club, that's what we think. That's not necessarily what the board and the owners are thinking. They're
going on your point, so, and if that is their attitude and what they're saying, then things are never going to change because they're accepting. They're accepting it's not coming from the top, and we're going to stay this, and we're either going to keep regressing, or we're going to do a West Ham next season and go and join them down there.
Exactly, and this is the thing. I mean, the biggest test. This is when we'll find out what this board and these owners and everybody is this transfer window that we've just currently started. If we don't go out and start, I mean, I know January isn't necessarily the easiest transfer window to buy, but this is where we've got to show something. If we go out and buy the same caliber of players that we're always buying, nothing has changed at this club. The only way we're going to see if we've changed our philosophy, we've just sold our top scorer. So and I'm not, you know, again, I'm not trying to say Brennan Johnson was the answer or anything like that, but you've just sold your top scorer. So
3 seasons in a row.
So now you've got to bring in somebody with a big name, big prospects, big boots to show, look, this is right. We've got rid of a player that we didn't want, but he was our top scorer. This is who we're going to replace him with.
We haven't got one in yet. It's just madness. It's nothing's changing. It's changing that we're selling players for money that we haven't done before, but money sitting in the bank don't help the team.
No, exactly. And the thing is, you know, we until we start seeing that this is who we're going to sign and this is what we're going to do, then if we just go through this season and we get, say, today 23. And we go and we sign one player this window and blah, 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 then nothing has changed at this club.
The thing is, though, as well, Simon, like, you know, I do worry about us sitting here going, signings is going to change everything at Tottenham. I'm not being funny. We gave Thomas Frank Paulini. How many games did he sit on the bench before the game against Brentford? You know, Colin Mawani being benched. Xavi Simons benched for large parts of this season. The only player that we brought in that hasn't been benched, Kudus. You know what I mean? Like we've given these guys players to sort of change our fortunes from last season. He's chose to bench them. So that's why I'm hesitant in sitting here and saying, you know, giving this guy signings is going to change it. Is he going to use them? Is he going to play them? You know, the fact that he's chopping and changing shows he doesn't know his best 11. We're sitting here going into January. The guy doesn't know what his best 11 is.
If we bought in Erling Haaland, how many goals do you think he would have had this season?
Probably about 5 in this system, if even.
That's a damning, you know, that we've had 7 through balls of what you're saying. He feeds off of things like that. So you can go and get the most prolific striker in the Prem or in Europe, however you want to word it. You ain't giving him the service. He's not a player like Harry Kane who will pick up the ball and do bits and score from 30 yards or Jermaine Defoe outside the box. He's not one of them. He feeds on give me the ball, running into the box, breaking stride, and being prolific at scoring. So you bring in that quality of player, how many goals would he get in this system? And if what we at 19, 20 games today, if we said he got between 5 and 8, I think that would be quite good.
Well, to that point, though, you look at the numbers that Xavi Simons was hitting before he joined Spurs, double digits in both scoring and assisting goals. You look at the numbers that Mawani was hitting before he came to Tottenham.
Yep.
Double digits in terms of goals. You look at the numbers that Kudus was hitting. Last season at West Ham was an anomaly. You go back and look at all the seasons prior, double digits. Our front players are far from that here at Tottenham Hotspur. Yet we sign these guys in to bring in what they've done at other clubs. And these guys have shown that they can do and perform at this level. So that's why I sort of then sit there and I question the system, or I question the tactics. I also question the fact that they're always being dipped in and out of the lineup, put in different positions and stuff like that. And it's sort of like, that's where I question, we can bring in more signs, but how much is it really going to improve if the tactics and the system and Thomas Frank's mindset doesn't sort of adjust alongside it? Is where my big question comes in. Because, look, 2 shots on target against Brentford, that's not a quality issue. It's just not. Don't get me wrong. I know Frank has pointed out, how many times we lost the ball in that game and stuff like that. But
you're not teaching them to pass and be in positions to pass to.
But you're also telling them not to take risks. So a lot of our passes is backwards and sideways. And, one thing that frustrates me, we sort of break the press and then we get the ball, into the midfield or into the forwards. And then all of a sudden we pass back in and they get the press on again. And it's like, the reason why players are doing that is because they don't have players running beyond them. They don't have players moving. The whole system is so rigid. It's so structured. There's not being enough runs made off the ball, but they're also not allowed to play them passes. They're not allowed to take shots, along in and around the edge of the box, despite how many we concede up the other end. And that's because Frank sees them as low goal scoring opportunities. We're always playing for throw-ins and corner kicks. We can't create anything from open play. We can't carve teams up from open play. And I'm sorry, but as bad as we were last year, we had some really good moves last year that were finishing let us down. This year, we can barely string 2-3 passes together. And it doesn't matter what player Frank brings in and what player he takes out. There is no improvement at all. And for me, that's where it does come down to the system, the structure, and everything else. We can sit here and moan about the quality of the squad. It was a good enough team to go and win a Europa League. And everyone can say, we played defensive. Beating Man United in the cup final is something I've never seen in my fucking lifetime as a Tottenham fan. So I'm never going to take that for granted. And the fact that we got over the line shows that there is something about some of these players. If we were to sell Romero, we would put Van de Ven on the list tomorrow, they'd go to a big club. You put Kudus, Simmons on the list tomorrow, they'll go to a big club. You don't take the option to buy Paulinho, he'll end up at another big club. We do have some good players to work around here. It's just, I do also, accept that, you want more. Every club that has ambition and wants to push on should always be looking to bring in bigger and better than what you've got to sort of improve the squad. And then by doing that, it either drags players up to that level and with you, and that they, it brings them on, or they fall off by the wayside. You let them go, and they've reached their sort of maximum potential and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the end
regardless of the manager, you need to bring in better quality, and you build slowly.
But the reality is like the style that Thomas Frank wants to play. It's going to take multiple windows in order to get the type of player, the player profile that he's looking for in order to play it. Meanwhile, we have a roster that is, that actually, if you look at it from player to player, they all have the same type of player profile. There's a lot of speed, and there's a lot of good players that are actually good with the ball at their feet, right? So why isn't he adjusting the tactics to play to his team strengths? The interesting thing about this, Martin, and Soren, you guys are old enough. When a team decides to sack a manager, it's because he wasn't necessarily getting out the best of the players that they currently had. The atmosphere around the club was terrible, and so they bring in a coach who can come in and deliver immediate results. And then when you listen to some of these old coaches, and they're the first ones to say, it's like, listen, man, I play this style of football, but I don't have the personnel in order to play it. So I'm going to simplify things, and I'm just going to play to the strengths of the team because I need to get immediate results, and I have to actually build credibility so I can actually do the things that I'm actually really trying to do at this club. And sometimes you have to put your ego to a side. And the problem with Thomas Frank is the fact that he never had credibility coming in with, and yet he actually had the wherewithal to try to play a style, try to play a style of football where the personnel doesn't match the tactics. And now here we are, January 1st, and as Dave alluded to, he's a manager that literally has no compass right now. He has no idea who his best 11 is. And yet he's still literally match in and match out, trying to put a square peg into a round hole with a roster that clearly is uncomfortable every single week that we're playing. They look like, they look confused. They look like they have no idea where they're supposed to be on the pitch. And all of a sudden we have these results, and people are scratching their head like, well, why are we only at? It's like, well, dude, look at the roster. We don't have the personnel to play the style of football that he wants to play. So why are we doing it? Why are we doing it?
You say that. You go back to the first 4 or 5 games that we played, and we didn't actually look too bad.
His tactics were different, though, Soren. He sent the team to go after teams in possession. Look at the way we played Man City.
The argument. You had a set of tactics, and the same players. We were going out there. We were maybe only winning 1-0 or 2-1 or something. We were winning. And then all of a sudden, he changed that midfield 3, took Papsar out, he did this, he did that. And we just got worse and worse and worse. Now,
that's his mindset, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, for me, when people sit here and saying, oh, the squad isn't good enough, the manager wasn't good enough, blah, 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 he's shown he can do something. He's shown the squad was...
That's the frustration, I think.
Right. We're not going to go down the same argument that we had with Ange. Oh, he's been found out, he's been this, he's been that. No. This set of players and this manager can do better than what they're doing right now. Now, whatever he did and changed back then, he has to go backwards to go forwards. And the problem is, he's instead of looking and thinking, this is where I've gone wrong, he's just carrying on down that route. And until he realizes what he's doing wrong, we'll never get back to that winning mentality.
I think where he changed was that defeat to Bournemouth. Things were going so well up until then, and then that defeat from Bournemouth sort of came out of the blue. And since then, he changed it up, which maybe shows he lost trust in the players sort of that day playing that way. And, I think that's a big thing. I think, as he and the thing is, why I think he shouldn't have changed it up. He came in himself. He said, we're going to lose games. He said that when he walked in, and, so he should accept that, you're going to lose games playing this way. But, so far we've won more than what we've lost. Continue playing this way. I also think the fact that he just took Papa Matasar out of the team just like that as well. I think he's lost Papa Matasar, to be brutally honest with you. If I'm Papa Matasar, I've been involved in nearly every goal from the start of preseason all the way through to this point, and you've took me out. Then, there's no incentive for me to keep performing. And you think other people aren't taking notice of that as well? Going,
that's all right, the answer. But you can understand if he's done it with one, then he's done it with Xavi, then he's done it with Paulinho. What are you doing to the players' minds? And then you go, right, listen, go on, jump out there. Make sure you don't lose. You're just stripping them from everything.
When you're dropping Papa Matasar, when you're dropping Paulinho, despite them sort of performing at a certain level, you're not sending out a message to everybody else. In fact, what you're telling them is it's okay to be on it one day and off it another day. That performances and level of performances, consistent performances, doesn't matter. When he took out Papa Matasar, I can tell you now, he lost that player. Papa Matasar sitting there going, well, what more do I have to do? I've practically done everything I can up to this point. You've took me out. You lose Sarr, and I think it's clear he's lost Mickey van der Ven. I think, by him snubbing him that time, that guy would, it doesn't seem like he'd snub many people. It's clear that Jed Spence, I don't think, is sort of playing for him. He snubbed him and done a few things, showing dissent and that towards the guy. And, I think by taking out Papa Matasar, then you end up taking out Paulinho, even though he's sort of providing that steal in the midfield and stuff. You're not setting a standard that performance matters, consistency matters. All you're saying is if you do that for me, you're coming out of the team. You know what I mean? It's absolutely madness in that regard. But look, I do want to move on, and I do want to talk about, the Archie Gray experiment. And this is another thing that I just think where he goes wrong. You play a defensive midfielder. in a number 10 role and ask him to go and, break down Brentford and be the creative catalyst, even though you've got Mohamed Kudus who can clearly play through the middle. And I just think the way he uses the squad as well doesn't help himself. But I just want to take these couple of chats before we get into that, because I'm of the opinion today he should move Kudus into the number 10 and give him that opportunity. Sean Hurl says, I had an apprenticeship at Pep's elbow. Who was Thomas Frank learned from? It's shown a Danish primary school teacher. Look, with Thomas Frank, he was just sort of in the setup at Brentford in terms of recruitment and all, and then end up being thrusted into the manager's job. But don't get me wrong, done well brilliantly to get them up at the championship and keep them in the in the Premier League and stuff like that. But some managers have made a living off that. That's just some managers' level. That's just what some managers are good at. Bringing together a group of players and sort of sustaining a certain level, but it doesn't mean that they're good enough for the next jump. Some of them just aren't. And look, even with Arteta, I'm not being funny, but if they had a more experienced manager, they probably would have kept Unai Emery. Probably would have won something by now. Even though Arteta had the apprenticeship beside Pep's elbow, when it comes to holding your nerve and managing the squad in the running into the season, this guy always bottles it. His nerves almost rub off on everybody else, and they end up bottling it. And I don't think they're going to win the Premier League again this year, to be honest with you, Sean. I think they'll end up bottling it again. Then all of a sudden you'll be looking at it going, well, how good is it? Has it really been underneath, Mikel Arteta? Yeah, it's probably a bit like where we were with Pochettino, but Arsenal fans were getting patient and want to take the next step. Seven says, Happy New Year, lads. Good to see you, Seven. Hopefully you're keeping well. Happy New Year to you and the family as well. Same to you, Shawnee Hurl. And Moondog, good to see you. Hopefully you had a good Christmas and a good New Year. He says, I used to get a buzz to match build-up. That's gone. I think
sorry, we're not good enough. Sorry.
I think you can tell that's gone with absolutely everybody, to be honest with you, Moondog. We're sort of sitting here just talking about the club's woes, waiting for the game to happen and just seeing what Tottenham team are going to turn up today and if we're going to give it a bloody good go or whether we're just going to sit there and fucking wrestle the Black Hats. Let's wait and see on that one, Moondog. But good to see you in the building and hopefully you're keeping well, sir. But guys, let's get on to Mohamed Kudus. Look, I know Xavi Simons is suspended today and he wasn't there for the Brentford game, but I think the Archie Gray experiment failed. Kudus has played, in this number 10 role at other clubs and stuff like that. Should Thomas Frank give him a chance in the middle to sort of see if we can unlock more from him? Because, when we sign Mohamed Kudus, I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's got a lot of great qualities, similar to Kulusevski in a way, and you're almost just waiting for it to sort of be tied together to really show the player that he can be. But I'd argue, well, over out on that right-hand side, he's just used as a battering ram. There's no one really there for him to link up with or stuff like that. Whereas I actually think you play him through the middle, I think, the guy could explode and actually cause a lot of problems. I think he's similar to Kulusevski. He uses his physique well to sort of hold up the ball, hold off players. He can get turned. He can break the lines. He can take players on and stuff like that. And for me, if Xavi Simons isn't available, I would put Kudus in there today, and let's see if maybe we can get a little bit more out of him. And if he does perform today, and Xavi Simons then becomes, available again, you put Xavi Simons out on the left, and you start building your attack that way. At some point, you got to try things to sort of get something going. And to me today, I would look to play Kudus through the middle, and I think it would bear fruits personally. I don't want to see Archie Gray there again.
Yeah, see, I feel we've put a lot of emphasis on Kudus this year. And then because everything's going to him, they're doubling up on him. And now all saying he's shit, he just holds on to the ball. But, it's all put on him. If you had, your number 10 working, your number 9 pressing the centre-backs, and you had a winger on the left as equal to Kudus, there's different options there. And they know if they doubled or trebled up on Kudus, there's a gap behind and someone's coming through. But they know they haven't got that. So it's easy to go and put your left back and your centre back straight over there because they know no one's coming through the middle or the other side. So all we do is we stop that route, that's stop the attack. Now, where before we had Sonny on the left, we had Kane up front who would drop into that 10 and do that, they wouldn't dare double up on Kudus because the threat would be elsewhere. And we would say, double up on him, because all you're going to do is open up and give us more opportunities to score in the middle. But where it's all on him and there's nothing else, you shut him down, we've got nothing. So he is getting a bit of a back. Listen, he does hold on to it too long. He doesn't release the pass when he should. But I think if he had runners and other people doing there and the manager saying, look, you get over there, 2 of them are going to come over to you. If you can slip it through to the 2 of them and there's someone in the middle, there's this open up space, they can play it to number 9, a little through ball. there's a goal. But when you just double up on him and he's got no outlet and nowhere else to go, they go, right, shut your tap down, and the left back picks the ball up, they lump it up the field and they're off again. It's easy. And the Archie Gray thing, I think that was a set to failure, and I think that's unfair on him. He's inexperienced anyway. Last year, he played a lot more than what he was meant to in a multiple of different positions. No one knew what his position was. Yeah. And then he's come in and he says, I want to be, he sees himself that 6 to 8 type player. So we're going to put two sixes behind you, and now you're going to have to use all that pitch and use all your magic to do this. It's just, feel sorry for him. But then he gets the bad rub of the green on the back of that.
Yeah, but the thing is, you've brought in Kudus, who we know is a guy that will run with the ball at his feet and put a cross in. Well, who's he crossing to? There's nobody in the frigging middle to cross to.
Yeah, correct.
You know, to me, whenever Kudus gets the ball, it's the only time I actually sit and think, oh, something might happen now. As you know, he hasn't been very good in the last few games. I get that. But like you say, he's getting doubled up, he's getting tripled on. But there's nobody for him to pass to. I mean, you know, everybody's we look, Richie isn't good enough, but he's the best we've got at the moment. But even he's, you know, if he's in the box on his own and there's 3 or 4 players around him, that ball isn't getting to him.
Correct.
And, you know, like before, under Ange, if you had one of the wingers coming down, you had the opposite winger coming in the box as well. So you had players in the box. We've got because we're playing 2 number 6s almost and a number 8. There's nobody going forward. Absolutely nobody. And you're not going to score with one person up front. I mean, how many times have we seen teams where they park the bus and they've got one player, a striker probably, running up the field, and he's absolutely knackered. And then by the time he actually gets a chance, he's too knackered to actually do anything.
That's Kudus.
With it. Yeah, and that's Kudus. And look, you know, as much as people want to get on his back, he is probably the only player on that pitch that's still trying to do something creative. And putting him in the
have you been
10,
disappointed by him, though? Sorry, you know, is there an element of disappointing in terms of the end product? Maybe
it's all right saying that there's no end product, but if you run down the pitch and you look up and there's nobody there, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
there is no end product because there's nobody there to put an end product to.
Was like the end of the Brentford game, that Richie ball, it just kicked it out in the crowd. It was just like.
Yeah. I mean, was it Brentford when Johnson came on, or was it the game before? And he was literally on for a few minutes, and he put an absolutely sublime cross in. There was nobody there, and you think that's probably one of the best crosses we've done all season.
And that's a ball that Johnson would get on the end of.
But that's because everyone's sitting so deep because of you know, how deep we sit to sort of, and then when we're trying to break, you know, naturally our wingers are quicker than everybody else in the team, or especially the players that are sort of trying to catch up through the middle. So to your point, when we look to cross the ball, there's no one there.
There's no one there.
You know what I mean?
They're not breaking their neck to get up there either.
No,
well, I just don't think they have the speed either. You know, you look at Bentancur or Paulini, if they're sitting so deep, they can't cover that ground as quick as Wilson or Mawani or stuff like that. So naturally, by the time we get to that point, we're looking up. And normally, the way it is, you sort of have your striker in there and you send in 1 or 2 of the midfielders to sort of get in there and double and triple up to create options, and your winger coming in off the far side to sort of create your options. The problem is, when we break, no one can get up with them.
Best thing I think we could do today is Kudus on the right, Odebear on the left, and Mawani and Richardson up front. Richarlison, sorry.
Well,
Richard.
So and that was the head scratching problem, Soren, was the fact that he was still playing the same sort of tactics, understanding that he didn't have anybody in central areas that they can actually play the ball off of, which is why we're having this conversation. So the interesting thing is understanding that you don't have certain central area players. Why wouldn't you swap the tactics and go to a back 3, and then you can actually move Kudus and Kolo Muani into central areas? So now all of a sudden you actually have the 1-2s to play off, not just in the link-up play, but also as players are pushing forward and you have width. You're going to be allowed to have yourself either the hold-up play with Mohamed Kudus, or you're going to have central area runs, which means you're going to have more players in the box to begin with. Because there was a large portion of time during that Brentford where we only had one man in the box versus 6 defenders. And
the problem here is we're all talking about attacking and scoring a goal. I don't think he is.
No, but,
But if you still want to play with more of a defensive shell, you can still accomplish that while still making yourself a little bit more attractive in counterattacking situations. But with Archie Gray essentially marked out in central areas, we were literally just stuck on the wings, and of course, you had defensive overloads on both sides. There was nobody in central areas where we can actually play the ball off of. There was no link-up play whatsoever. So, why wouldn't you swap your tactics where you're actually bringing Kudus, you're playing with 2 inside forwards where you're actually going to have opportunities to play the ball off in central areas on both sides, and that's going to allow a little bit more freedom with your width.
Steve, you say go to a back 3. We don't need to go to a back 3. Play the back 4 as it is with Paulinho in front of him and let the rest of them go forward. You've just bought on loan with an option, whatever he is, one of the best number 6s out there at the moment.
I agree.
And then you play another one alongside. You play Bentancur and tell him to stay back as well. So to me, you've got Romero, you've got Van der Ven, put Paulinho just in front of him. Yep. You've got Jed Spence, which is pretty enough. It's plenty. Yeah.
That triangle, that's enough to protect the goal.
Exactly. And if you watched when we're talking about Archie Gray as a number 10. No, he's not a number 10. But when he played that number 8 role and was allowed to run,
that's different.
I agree.
Yeah. So put Paulinho in there. We're playing Sunderland. Put Mawani and Richarlison up front with your 2 wingers and somebody behind that's going to do a little bit of running. And just say to Paulinho, sit, do your job. I mean, he's number 1 in tackles this season, I believe. And you've got a player there that knows that role. That's what he does. He thrives in that role. Just leave him to do his job.
He could even play the midfield similar to what Ange Postecoglou done. 1-6, 2 10s.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that way then when you do get the ball into the front line, these players then they're not making up 60, 70, 80 yards to get in the box. They're only making up 20, 30 yards. And that way you can get players in the box. Because right now, when we're a team that relying on crosses and stuff, but when we're crossing the ball, it has to be bloody perfect when you've got one player in there to aim for. It has to be absolutely perfect. And I think everyone will agree crossing isn't our winger's speciality to a large degree. So, that's where it's important that if you're going to instruct these players to hit the ball into certain zones, you've got to flood them zones with players. You've got to give players the instructions to get in there, get on the end of things. And that's where I think Frank is letting himself down. I think he's trying to do similar to what Poch done, but I think he's failing to realise Poch had an unbelievable player in Dembele who could just pick up that ball from his own box and bring it all the way up to the end.
What would you do with a field day in that? Because there'd be so much space.
But he's trying to play that with Bentancur, and Bentancur just ain't that guy. He's not that guy that's going to do that. He wants to pass and move, So he's not going to get away with playing it the way he's continuing to play this. It's got to be one, like you boys were saying, with Paulinho in front of Romero and the bench. That is more than enough aggression and shithousery to be able to protect that goal 9 times out of 10.
I'll tell you what I would love to see now. I mean, we all talk about Dembele, but there's one player that I would love to see in the squad right now, but with a totally different attitude to what he's got, and that is Ndombele. If he had a different attitude to what he had, and the skill that lad had, he could be an absolute monster in that midfield now.
Yeah. He would have been. He could have been a well beater. He just could have.
He could have been, but the problem was he liked his McDonald's chicken.
Well, that's why Thomas Frank is holding out hopes for Kulusevski because of that reason.
He's never had Kulu, he's never had Madison, so we can't miss it because he's not had it. We can miss it. He's never had it. So it's going to be like a new signing for him.
Yeah, but Matt, when Madison was playing, everybody and Kulu, they were telling us they weren't good enough neither. But now we haven't got them. Suddenly they're the ones that are missing and would be
I've always rated Kulu. I've always liked
Kulu. No, but you know what I'm saying.
I just his commitment.
They were never world class. They were never the ones that were the answer. I mean, even when Madison was playing
last year, they'd have all let him go. It was like, well, we are. But
You know
now
what I mean?
suddenly he's the new Messiah.
Maddison would have 3 or 4 great games, and then he'd go missing. And look, I think Maddison could do well in this team, but you know, he's not the Messiah people think. Neither is Kulu. Kulu is an absolutely fantastic beast. I get that, but you know,
Listen, we have missed Solanke, Kulusevski, and Maddison, but you can't just say Frank ain't doing it because of them. It's just not right. Oh, here we go.
We've got this from Wayne Bonner first. He says Richie is not the right man. Give Muani the role. Look, I do agree he's not the right man long term, but I will take what we're getting out of him. It's better than what maybe we've got out of him before. He is the club's top scorer. He's shithousing a couple of goals. Let's see if he can bag one today, Wayne Bonner. But eventually, I would like to see Muani moved up front. You know, once we can sort out someone out on that left side for sure, Wayne. Let's go through the team here. It is Vicario in goals. We have Romero and Van de Ven as our centre-backs. Ben Davies comes in at left-back today, with Pedro Porro at right-back. Then in midfield, you've got Gray and Bentancur, which means Paulinho drops to the bench. It's looking like Udabur potentially off the right, Matisse Tell off the left, Kudus through the middle maybe, with Richarlison leading the line. Then on the bench, you have Kinski, Dragusin, Danzo, Paulinho, Bergvall, Spence, Cole Mawani, Scarlett, and Williams Barnett. So Frank is doubling down on Wilson Odubur. He's given him a lot of praise recently. And look, hopefully it bears fruits for him today. But no Mawani, I'm a bit hesitant on that one. Ben Davies coming in for Jed Spence. Again, a bit hesitant on that one. Let's wait and see how it unfolds. Matisse Tal being given his opportunity despite maybe rumours of a loan potentially for him. So it's an interesting lineup today. I'm not going to lie. It's not one that fills me full of confidence, but we shall wait and see. I think he's missing a massive trick dropping Paulinho, dropping Mawani, dropping Spence here. I'm a little bit concerned going into this game, especially since Sunderland are known for how robust they've been, you know, how aggressive they've been. You know, Ben Davies is definitely going to be a huge area of weakness for them to get at.
Can you do Danso in the centre back and put Van der Ven on the left if things are that bad that he can't play Spence?
But that's what I would do. That's what I would do personally. But I don't know. This is what I'm saying. Like playing Archie Gray at 10 last week, you know, not a Kudus or one of them attacking sort of players. It's just like, I'm not saying he's got the perfect squad, but I just don't think he handles some of these situations the best. Like Ben Davies coming in, everybody knows he's finished at this level. Everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know, guys. I don't know. Look, we'll go through everybody. We'll get their thoughts on the lineup. First, I'll take this from Stano. Good to see you, Stano. Hopefully you're keeping well. Listen to us. We are literally clutching at straws and hope. This mess is years of neglect in the transfer market. What do we expect? Davies still playing sums it up. Yeah, look, Stano. I mean, look, we just want to see something to get behind. We just want to see an ounce of positivity. And you're right. You know, without a clear plan in the transfer windows, you know, this is partly why we don't have strength in depth, despite, you know, the amount of money we spend. Because the amount of money we spend isn't the problem. We spend money. It's just we're constantly chopping and changing directors of football. We're constantly chopping and changing managers, which means we're constantly chopping and changing the squad to the way they see football, rather than us saying this is the way we are and this is the players we're bringing in of this ilk, and it's up to you guys then to find them and manage them the best you can. And I think that's where we go wrong. We're almost waiting. Like Paratici came in here. This is the way I play, and that's the way we're building this squad. You know, then Frank comes in here. This is the way I play. This is the way I want to build the squad. Postecoglou, this is the way I play. I want to build the squad. No. We as a club should identify what way we want to play, bring in players accordingly, and then you bring in the people and around that. And I guarantee you start seeing better fucking results than what we're seeing currently right now, Stano. You look at Brentford and Brighton's model, you know, they have their way of playing, they have their recruitment process, and they bring in people accordingly to manage what they've got. You know, 9 times out of 10, what you're seeing is managers moving on from these clubs and failing to take that next level, which shows, you know, that it does work. So big up, Stano. Good to see you in the building. Look, let's start from top to bottom. Let's get people's thoughts on the lineup, and let's get their score predictions. Soren, how are you, my man? Looking at that lineup, what's your thoughts and what's your score prediction?
I would say if we were given a 3-goal start, we're going to lose 2-1. Don't know. I mean, I'm hoping it's going to be Kudus on the right, Odebear on the left, and Tell and Richarlison up front. But I don't know. I'm as much as everybody keeps saying put Kudus in the 10. I want to see him on the right because I think that's his strongest position. For me, I could be wrong. He could come out and have a blinder. I'm going to go with 0-0. And I don't think I've ever said 0-0 before. So,
but did you know what? It really is a sign of how boring we are and our woes going forward. Because even at our worst, people would predict 3-2, 4-3. You know what I mean? We say, and now we're predicting 0-0. And to be honest with you, I think many people don't would sort of go, do you know what? I can see that we don't score many. You know what I mean? We're sort of. It's just, oh man, it's Sunderland. We're talking about Neil. Oh, where have we come?
I mean,
where have we come?
I'll never sit here and say that I'm going to predict a losing score. So 0-0's as bad as it ever gets with me. So 0-0.
Fair enough, Hodges. If you can't get optimism out of Soren heading into the game, it doesn't bring well the rest of us. Martin, how are you seeing this? What's your thoughts on the lineup? Big mistake?
Well, so are you thinking we've got the 4 at the back, and then we've got Gray and Bentancur 6-8, and then you're doing the 3 and the 1? Yeah. I just think that's totally wrong. I think you've got to put 2 up front. Like if you're going to play,
I think it's 4-4-2.
4-3-3.
Yeah, that's
4-4-2.
Yeah,
I would like a 4-4-2.
Yeah, Tell could be up front with Richarlison off the left. He's done that this season.
But that's what I'm saying. If you're playing them like that, but I don't. The Davies thing. It's no disrespect to Davies, right? But there's other options and other systems. Whatever he needs to do, if he thinks Spencer's knackered or he ain't got 90 minutes in him and he wants to do something different. A 33-year-old who has hardly played anything this year and hardly anything last year, he can't be the answer. And as I say, that's not personal to Davis. That's just where he's at in his career. And, he might do well to turn up because he always gives it effort. I'm not, as I say, I won't knock him because he will do his best. Oh, yeah, but is his best good enough for us? I can't see more than... I'll never predict a loss. I might think it, but I'll never say it out loud. If we nick a 1-0 today, I'll be well happy.
I'll take it. I'll take any result at this moment in time, to be honest with you. We've got Swagman, he reckons it could be a 3-5-2. What's Jacko saying? We got Ben Davies still playing left back in 2026. I know. I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say about that. Steve, what do you think this sort of system, this lineup is? Many people are sort of, suggesting maybe it could be different things. I do think it's just going to be the 4-2-3-1. It's just what variation is that front line going to line up? That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. I was like, is this a 4-4-2? Is this a 4-2-2-2? Is this a 4-2-3-1? Because the way it reads to me is that Odebear is going to be playing in the central area with Tell off the left and Kudus off the off the right. That's kind of what it reads to me, right? And that's why I was kind of thinking, is this like a 4-2-2 with Matisse Tell kind of playing with Odebear kind of playing that kind of withdrawn forward, that false 9 type 10, where he's going to drop into central areas and still push up, right? So I was kind of confused by this configuration, but it actually kind of reads as a 4-2-3-1 with Bentancur and Gray as the midfield pivot. And then it looks like it feels like Odebear is probably going to be in that central area, which again, it's kind of a head scratcher. Now, granted, Matisse Tell off the right might not be ideal, but again, there has to be some sort of link up play, some sort of hold up play in that central area, which Mohamed Kudus probably is able to deliver that in spades, and it gives us a little bit more width on the wings, but apparently it's not going to play that way. So I guess the question is, number one, how are we going to sustain in the buildup? Or is this just going to be a straight counterattacking type job? Regardless, I'm going to stick to my prediction. from yesterday, and I'm going to say 3-1 Sunderland.
Fucking hell. Jesus. Look, my variation of that front four, just quickly, I'd rather see Kudus through the middle, Udeber off the right, Ted off the left, and Richarlison up front. That's the way I prefer it to be lined up. But look, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what it is. It could very well end up being a 4-4-2. Let's, if it is, let's see how that sort of works out. Look, for me, I sort of said a long time ago, strapping and buckling. It's going to be a long, long season. Don't see us ripping Sunderland open and doing something we failed to do a lot of this season. I'll go 1-0 Tottenham and I'll take it. Maybe, I don't see us scoring 2 goals. So 1-0 Tottenham. Look, what I will say to maybe give people a little bit of confidence going into this game, Sunderland have only picked up 9 points on the road this season out of their 29. So on the road, they are a bit patchy. They are missing a lot of players that have gone to AFCON as well. And they've only also scored 4 goals away from home this season. So, there are signs that on the road, maybe they're not as strong as they are at home, and hopefully we can take advantage of that. However, we are absolutely shocking at home, and it'd be very interesting to see what the crowd is like, and also whether the players turn up today, and if Thomas Frank lives up to his pre-match press conference words that we're going to go at them, be aggressive, and on the front foot. I want to say a massive thank you to the guys here today for giving up their time with their loved ones around this festive and holiday period to be here and talk Tottenham's woes. I can tell you now, it's not easy. I think all of us would agree we'd probably rather just sulk on the couch, than, sometimes moan about this football club in front of everybody. So a massive thank you to these guys. I really do appreciate that. And a massive thank you to all of you guys at home as well who choose to tune in and go through all the mud, all this fucking knee-high shite that we're in right now. You choose to go through that with us. So massive appreciation to all you guys at home, and also the people who have gone the extra mile today. Jardinio, Jerome, and we also have Quantum Rage, Wayne Bonner as well a few times, Eddie, Quantum Rage again, and then also Sean Hurl, 7, Moondog as well, and then also Stano as well. Really appreciate all you guys. We're going to take a little bit of a break here, and I'll be back with Jacko for the watch along. Jacko's a little bit sick today, so take it easy on him. You might not get as many sirs out of him or that today, but we'll see you back here in half an hour's time. And regardless of what state we're in, as always, come on, you Spurs.
Kulusevski forever. Let's go, Spurs.